win by the Pittsburgh Penguins tonight, 5-1 over the Columbus Blue Jackets. I have a full game recap coming up right for you all after this drop. Going to get into Sidney Crosby's ridiculous game, Evgeni Malkin with one hell of a rip, Jake Guentzel finding the score sheet again against the Columbus Blue Jackets, Brian Rust, Tristan Jarry, Rickard Rakell's debut. Probably do a little bit of a preview for Wednesday night's showdown in Buffalo. I have that and a whole lot more coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by, make sure I got this right, Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. I thought for a second it was BetOnline, and I just completely screwed that up. But you know what? Whatever. We're going to leave it in there because I don't usually mess that up, but I guess it's maybe a little bit funny. But this is probably one of the first wins of the year that I don't think I have anything negative to say about the Penguins. This was utter domination through and through against an inferior opponent. And, the schedule is going to get tough again. Starting on Friday when they go to Madison Square Garden to play the Rangers. But right now, in this little 3-game stretch, you have Arizona, Columbus, and Buffalo on Wednesday night. You got to bank those points against the teams that are lower than you in the standings because they still have 3 more against the Rangers. They got Nashville again, Colorado twice, the Islanders still a couple times. They got to bank points against those 2 teams, points against that team twice. The Red Wings, they still got to play twice. But other than that, for the most part, this team plays playoff teams down the stretch with about only 18 games left in the regular season. So it is very important to not only, bank these points, but play well enough to bank these points. And the Penguins tonight, even after they were only down 1-0 going into the second period, I wasn't worried. I'm like, you know what? Joonas Korpisalo is on a little bit of a heater. I know it's been a couple games in a row where some goalies have played really well against the Penguins that don't usually play well against other teams. So I was like, okay, maybe in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, hopefully this isn't going to happen again. But sure enough, it didn't. The Penguins were able to blitz Korpisalo in the second period, scoring 4 goals. Going back to that first period for a second, though, the Penguins came out and flat out dominated. Then, I put this tweet out on my Twitter page. They had 61% of the shot attempts, 75% of the scoring chances, all the high danger chances, 78% of the expected goals. You do that on a consistent basis, you are going to get results. And they continue to do that as the game went on. And sure enough, Penguins got the results. The result that they were looking for. Radim Zohorna opened up the scoring for the Penguins in the second period. I know he basically put it into an empty net, but it's still a big goal for him to get because, again, these last few games, more and more depth scoring. It's funny, I bashed some of the other players for not stepping up when they needed to, but also, these players are depth players for a reason, so they are going to go cold every once in a while. But lately, the depth scoring has really been there, and it continued tonight with Zohorna getting a goal. I always love watching him play. He's great defensively. Just a big dude to get the puck off of it. It's very hard to get the puck off him due to his size and his reach and everything. And, his puck handling skills are actually pretty decent too. So I know it was only basically an empty net goal. Korpisalo had no chance, but it's good to see him get onto the score sheet because, when hopefully Bronk McGinn and Jason Zucker come back into the lineup, he's probably not going to play. He's honestly probably going to be sent down to Wilkes-Barre because Brian Boyle is going to be the 13th forward, I think, at this point. So great to see him get on the score sheet. Jake Guentzel was able to get back on the score sheet as well. He gets his 30th goal of the year. I mean, that feed by Sidney Crosby, good grief. I marvel at how easy Sid makes it. I mean, the edge work that he had with his skates there to just, turn around, go the other way, and then fire a pass between the legs of that Columbus defender, and then Jake just fires it home. It's just like, I'll never get used to it because he's been doing this for almost 20 freaking years now. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're over a decade and a half into his tenure here, and he is making things look just so freaking easy. I marvel at it. Great pass, and he's only continuing to get better as the season goes on. Sid is heating up at the right time. Especially we're in the stretch run. The playoffs are only about 6 weeks away. The sunset now is at 7:00. It's one of my favorite times of the year. I'm so amped for playoff hockey. Especially when the Penguins obviously are in it. I get so jacked up. So there's a lot of good things going right now for the Penguins. Brian Ross, he was able to get another goal. Again, solidifying his I just blanked on the word choice that I was about to use. Solidifying, his stance on, why the Penguins should pay him instead of maybe, one of the other core guys. Again, I stress, I would much rather pay Malkin and Letang first, then worry about Brian Russ later, see if you can move some salary out or something like that. But I still think that Brian Russ needs to be kept at all costs. I mean, he's that good. And I don't think he's a player that this team can afford to lose. What a goal he had there, just knifing around one of the Columbus defensemen, and then the other defenseman just did his own beautiful Rob Scuderi, Jack Johnson impression. He, for some reason, laid on the ice when there was no one backdoor. Brian is going to take that every time and go for backhand, forehand, and just absolutely destroy Korpisalo. So awesome goal there. And then it looked like for the time being, Sidney Crosby had another goal, but it was changed to Jake Guentzel because it went off him. So that is his 31st goal. And he is now, I believe, the only Penguin player in the Sid Gino era to have more of I messed up that stat. He is the only other Penguin during the Sid and Gino era to have multiple 30-plus goal seasons. James Neal, remember, he had 40 that year. But Jake has just been doing this on such a consistent basis, and I am going to make sure that I got that stat right. I do not want to ever screw that up, because I felt like for a second that I was forgetting Chris Kunitz. Yeah, no, Chris Kunitz only scored 30 once. Jake is the only Penguin to have multiple 30-plus goal seasons in the Sid and Gino era. Again, no Kunitz did it. I know Neil did it, at least with the 40-goal one, but not even. It's crazy how consistent Jake Guentzel has been for his career. And yeah, again, Neil, he had 40 in 2011, 2012, did not ever hit 30-plus again as a Penguin. So good stuff. Got that stat right. I had to make sure I had it on my notes here, but I wanted to go on to Hockey Reference and just make sure that I got that stat to you all. And that's 100% accurate. I've messed up a couple times in the past with some stats that I've given up, so I don't want to do that again. So, and obviously Jake has a ton of fun playing the Blue Jackets. He has owned them in the regular season and the playoffs. And, I think tonight really just goes to show how dominant a team like the Penguins are against, a team that's outside the playoff picture, because, you can really see who, it's a men's versus boys kind of game here with the top 8 teams in the conference versus the bottom 8 teams in the conference. I know the Rangers got their butts whooped tonight by the Devils, but I don't think that's going to happen on a nightly basis. But Columbus, I applaud them for kind of being in the race, even though they're not really there. They're 13 points back at this point with 18 games to go. Hey, I would have to take a monumental collapse by any one of those teams in a playoff spot, but I don't think that's going to happen. Just a truly dominant performance by Pittsburgh, and they pick up points 86 and 87. And maybe knowing Sidney Crosby, he's probably not going to want to have the team move from there just because of how superstitious he is. Of course, I'm just kidding. Their Penguins are going to need more points here to secure their playoff spot, even though it's 99.9% sure that they are going to get in. And then Evgeni Malkin with one hell of a rip. I'm going to get to that actually coming up here in this next segment. Before I get to that, though, it's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. The Sweet 16 and the Elite 8 are this weekend. Let me know how your brackets are doing. I'm actually in first place in my dad's pool, which has about 30 people. Follow the latest odds, contests, and player prompts. BetOnline.net is the number one source for all of your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information needs, including live betting in your favorite Vegas casino games. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. Picking up where I left off, Evgeni Malkin. I mean, you almost have to blink and you miss it because that was a flat-out rocket on the power play. You know, I think Darren D_Nasty on Penguins Twitter was telling me he was at the game, and the crowd, it took them half a second to realize that the puck went in and out of the net because it was so quick. But that was a missile from Gino. He is feeling it right now. Just another really strong game from him. He continues to help this team win in multiple ways. I never want to hear anything about how Gino stinks or the Penguins don't need him to win games or stuff like that. It's just a bunch of bull crap, in my opinion. I'm not going to say the other word. We got to keep a little family-friendly audience here. But great shot there by Gino. And, I thought he had a really good game tonight. He took that penalty late in the third period. I kind of just laughed at it because it was kind of a typical Gino penalty. Yelled a nice obscenity to the ref in the penalty box. I retweeted it. So if you want to go check that out, you can go on my social media page and see that. It's basically just, F you. But, in a typical Gino fashion. Those are all for the goals. But a player that I thought really stood out again, Kapanen. This is another great game from him. He knifed through the Columbus, forecheck and their defenseman beautifully in the first period. And it was almost like it feels like a coast-to-coast play, and just couldn't beat Korpisalo's toe. Had he done that, I think he would have brought the house down. That would have really got his confidence back. I really thought that he was feeling it tonight. This has now been, honestly, about 3 to 4 games in a row now where we're starting to see a better version of Kasperi Kapanen, heck, closer to the version that we saw. I almost said another word there. Closer to the version of what we saw from him last year. And that is huge for the Penguins. I'm glad they didn't give up on him. They easily could have, and I totally would have understand it. I know he's taken a lot of heat from the fans, myself included. I cover the team on this podcast, but I'm so happy that he's playing better hockey right now. You can see his body language looks a lot better. And, I can maybe chalk a little bit up to, Jeff Carter in Nashville, just, putting his hand on his leg and saying, you know what, man, it's going to turn around. And so far it's done exactly that. Got that goal over the weekend against Arizona where he kissed his stick, basically, which was just amazing. And then, tonight, gets a couple very quality chances. His skating was much better. His passing was more crisp. I know he kind of flubbed on the chance from Rickard Rakell a bit earlier in the game. I'll get to Rakell in just a second. But, just really thought he played a great game tonight. I'm really hoping he's going to make me and a lot of you listeners of this podcast and all the fans of this team eat a lot of crow here down the stretch and into the playoffs. So that was massive, I think, from Kapanen. Tristan Jarry, cool as a cucumber again. He continues to look truly spectacular in the net. His last 8 starts, 7-1. He's faced 235 shots, 222 saves, has a .945 save percentage, and he has 2 or less goals given up in 7 of those 8 games. Make this guy a Vezina Trophy finalist already. I've been beating that drum all year long. Sure, he may not win it, but if he hasn't been one of the 3 best goaltenders in hockey, I know there's obviously a lot of goalies that rank ahead of them in Gold State above expected. I mean, the list isn't that long, but he's still top 10. But he's having a season for the ages right now, and I think if you take all of his stats and you compare them to the other goalies, I think he deserves to be a finalist, at least in my opinion. Just a really great game from him tonight, and we're 5.5 weeks away now, 5.5, 6 weeks away now before he's going to really have to put those demons to rest. He's done basically everything right during the regular season so far, knocking on wood. I'm going to do that right now, as I just did. But you know what? This is just, he's been so awesome. I have almost all of the confidence in the world right now in him, and he's going to have to prove it come May. All of May potentially, all of June potentially, and maybe even a little bit into July if the Penguins can go on a nice little Stanley Cup run here. So, great game, I thought, from him. Let's get to Rickard Rakell, the new guy. I thought he was awesome tonight. Basically, almost set up a sure goal right in his first shift. I mean, that would have brought the house down, I think, at PPG as well. Had a great pass to Kapanen in front of the net. I just talked about that a couple of minutes ago. It stunk that Kapanen flubbed on it, but it's just, that's the playmaking that I want to see from Rakell, moving forward. If he's going to keep doing that, he's going to fit in just fine. I don't really mind if he was on the third line. I honestly, I couldn't care less. Mike Sullivan is going to tinker with the Lions. Hell, the guy hasn't even had a full practice with the team. He's going to then play again tomorrow night. And then they're probably not going to have, honestly, they're probably not going to practice on Thursday. Then they play on Friday against the Rangers. And then they play on Sunday against the Red Wings. So I don't even know when his first practice is going to be. I mean, I guess they'll have a morning skate on Friday. Maybe they'll have a practice on Saturday when they play the Red Wings. But, this is a busy stretch here for the Penguins where they're basically playing 4 games in 6 nights. So I'm curious to see how much practice time, they are going to have, just how quick Rakell learns the system here. But, I thought he fit in well with Jeff Carter and Kasperi Kapanen. Honestly, looking at the Penguins lines tonight, Rakell, Carter, Kapanen were on the ice for close to 50% of the shot attempts. Not as many scoring chances, though. They were the only one that was negative, 33% of the scoring chances. High danger, they also lost the battle as well. I know only a 10-minute sample size. I'm sure they're going to try Rakell with Malkin at some point. But overall, I thought it was a good game from Rakell. Just a really nice first impression. Loved that the crowd really, just gave him a nice standing ovation when he was shown on the Jumbotron. It looked like as I was watching the game. Shout out to you. You all that went to the game, just got to give him a warm welcome. So really nice debut from him. Everyone else, again, great game. John Marino looked fantastic. Chris Letang, I thought, had a really strong game. Brian Dumoulin was fine. Mike Matheson drew a nice penalty as he was cutting to the net. I believe that was in the second period. I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, that was the second. No, my bad. First period. That was the power play that carried over into the second. My fault. I really don't have a problem with how anyone played in this game. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to get to some listener takeaways and potentially do a small little preview for the game tomorrow night in Buffalo. That will not be regionally televised for all of you that listen in Pittsburgh. It is a nationally televised game. This will be the Penguins' second game, actually, on TNT this year. It's hard to believe that they have not really been nationally televised a lot. They've only really had a couple of games on ESPN Plus. Strictly on ESPN Plus / Hulu. But I think down the stretch here, they're going to have more games on the national networks. I think just because, for the push for the playoffs and everything with that. But before we get to our last segment, you can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why should you choose to spend 30%, 50%, or even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer. They have everything you can need from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find a solution to your auto part needs. You can go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car, truck, and you can write Locked On their How Do You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts you will cover ever need. Visit rockauto.com. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LO_Penguins. So getting to the listener takeaways here, Alan Teodor says, as someone who can only watch third period, looking at some of the stats, it looked like a great game. I'm excited to see what Rakell can do. I'm excited to see what the team can do, hopefully, for the next 2 to 3 months. Yeah, I mean, honestly, Alan, I'm sure you're going to listen to this episode if you're not listening right now. As I said, I've been saying just a really dominant performance tonight by the Penguins, probably one of their best performances of the year. There was really no stretch where Columbus was dictating the pace of the game, maybe a couple shifts here and there, but overall, just a really good performance by the Penguins tonight. Iris AJ says, glad we didn't close the door on Kapanen. He's been really great the last 3 to 4 games. Also love the big twin towers on the fourth line, Boyle and Big Z. Yeah, I mean, those two players. I mean, it's fun to watch that fourth line. I know they're probably both going to be healthy scratches here come playoff time, but they really were fun to watch tonight. You know, at even strength, the Penguins actually had 60%, close to 60% of the shot attempts with them on the ice, 55% of the high danger of the scoring chance with them on the ice, and 60% of the high danger chances. So the fourth line actually looked pretty good in this game. You know, Boyle had a couple nice moments on the PK. It's sometimes hard to watch him due to how slow he is foot speed wise, but you know, he's also blown away, I think, all of our expectations this year. So really happy with how he's played. SNZ says Rickard Rakell will fit fine with the Pens. Not a bad first game. And, you know, I have hope for Kapanen after all. You know, I'm glad that you all are also noticing that Kapanen is playing a lot better. You know, I'm glad that I, you know, kind of put the wheels in motion a little bit when I noticed what Jeff Carter did last week when he was, you know, kind of there for him. And, you know, Kapanen, I think, was in, you know, more darker place than usual, just, you know, with where his confidence was for his season. So I'm glad that you all are really noticing that too. Make sure I got everyone here. Yes, Penguins. Yes, Irish Age of the Penguins are Columbus's. You know, it's the big brother, little brother. You know, they're 14-2-1 in their last 17 games against Columbus. They flat out own them, to say the least. And I do agree. You know, with the man keep rust with Malkin. I don't mind it. You know, honestly, with how the Guentzel Crosby Rodriguez line is going, I believe tonight they had close to 60% of the shot attempts. At 5v5. That was per money puck. I'm going to check National Stat Trick here real quick. Yeah, 64% actually of the shot attempts. Also 88% of the expected goals. So with how that line's humming, I'm probably not interested in breaking it up anytime soon. So thank you all so much for sending in those listener takeaways. I really do appreciate it. So up next for the Penguins, a Wednesday night matinee against the Buffalo Sabres, a team that the Penguins have split 2 games against. Remember the first meeting, it was the Dustin Tokarski show as the Penguins were just peppering him all game, and he just flat out owned them somehow. In the second game, the Penguins were able to win that one in Pittsburgh. This will be their first and only trip to Buffalo until next season. I'm sure Craig Anderson will start on this game. You know, Tage Thompson, he is the big threat to look out for here for the Penguins, having a career high season with 25 goals. The move to center, I think, has really paid off for Buffalo. You know, the Sabres have actually, you know, not been a bad team as of late. You know, they're actually winning some games. They just took down the Canucks. Hell, they just took down the Flames and Calgary. I know they got blown out by Edmonton, but they also took down the Leafs. I believe that was at the Heritage Classic. That was just hilarious. That was when the Leafs goaltending was just a total meme. They took down the Golden Knights. You know, this is a Sabres team that's actually won 4 of their last 5 games. So they're playing some of their best hockey here of the season. Jeff Skinner has been better this year. Alex Tuck has enjoyed a nice renaissance since coming over from Vegas. Peyton Krebs has been good. Dylan Cousins, you know, there's definitely stuff to work for here in Buffalo's top 6. I think the future is a little more brighter right now for the Sabres. They need that franchise caliber winger / center to really kick things into high gear here. Casey Middleton on the 4th line, Victor Olofsson, Asplund on the 3rd line, and then Cody Eakin, Kyle Oposo. You know, Oposo, I think, has goals at least in one of the games this year for the Penguins. You know, Rasmus Dahlin on the top pairing. Yoki Haru is with him. Mark Pysyk, he's quietly having a good year. And then, you know, I believe Colin Miller is still there as well. So, you know, there are pieces there with this Sabres team. Sure, the underlying numbers are not that good, but, you know, this is a team that's played the Penguins tough this year, and they've been playing a lot of top teams pretty good. So this is no gimme game, to say the least. I know the Penguins have had, you know, the best road record in the league this year, but, you know, this is definitely, I think, going to be a challenge for me. They just played tonight. You know, they're traveling Back-to-backs are always, tough. I don't care who the opponent is. The Sabres are a bit resting, obviously. Curious to see how the team looks in Buffalo. I'm sure, obviously, Casey DeSmith is going to get the start. So that'll do it for this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Thank you all so much for listening to this one. I'll be back on Wednesday evening with another full game recap episode before I welcome Rachel Nones to the podcast for the first time on Thursday. She writes about the New York Rangers for a couple publications and knows the team very well. So she's going to help me preview Friday's massive game at Madison Square Garden. So that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening again to the show. And I'll be back on Wednesday.